Living away from home changes you. For the first time, you're managing everything your time, your choices, your relationships. The first time living away from home can feel exciting and also lonely, messy, and confusing. Today, we are chatting with Sumanji, a guide from our Seeking Culture space. Hi, I'm Sumanji. Welcome back. How are you doing?
How are you, Akshaya? I'm doing well. That's a good question. How am I doing? Let's dive into that, right? We ask how are you doing in such a casual way, and we never wait for the response. So just teasing. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well. I'm really excited to be here today and excited to get started. I really appreciated our Seeking Culture space all of last year and we're really excited to get started again back in September. So, for those of you listening, our Seeking Culture space is a virtual group that gathers every week targeted towards those navigating college and young adult experiences. So excited to get started. I guess the first question that comes to mind when we think about college is we go through that transition of making new friends and leaving our family at home, perhaps. What is Sumanji's advice for those feeling maybe disconnected when they start college?
That's a very good question and a very important thing for us to think about as we I feel not just move through this transition when we go from like high school to college, but college to working professionally, college to moving away from family, so on and so forth. And oftentimes when we feel disconnected, we'll qualify this as saying, I feel alone, or rather, I'm feeling lonely. We'll make a distinction between these two words. The idea of loneliness and aloneness or being alone. And I liken this to fasting, upavasa, which we practice in our as a sadhana. The idea of fasting is multifold. One, it is, as I had shared the Sanskrit word upavasa, to bring one's thoughts and self closer to divinity. The second is that when we fast, food is in abundance. I am choosing not to eat for this specific purpose, to feel closer to divinity. But when I'm ready, food is always available to me. I could stop right now if I'm fasting and eat. That's the choice that is availed to me. But starvation is when food is not available. So even if I want to eat, I can't eat. And so, circling back to these two ideas of aloneness and loneliness, being alone is when we intentionally create space for ourselves to be with ourselves. Loneliness is when we feel alone in spite of there being people around us. And so we're disconnected as though without choice. And so, in such a situation, when we're feeling this loneliness, this disconnection, we should approach it in a logical way too, in a systematic way too. So, when one is feeling lonely, one can naturally feel sad, depressed, anxious. And when one is unable to manage those feelings, those expressions of loneliness, the first thing I would encourage anyone to do, myself to do, is seek professional help. Have someone who can objectively support you through talk therapy, through behavioral therapy, through what is required to bring oneself out of that place of loneliness. And I'm sharing this specifically because it's like, imagine if you were angry right now and I want to help you come down from that anger, right? I see your body language is tense, your shoulders are rolled up, you're breathing heavy, you're huffing and puffing, right? And I say, Akshaya, relax. And although my intention is to help you relax, really what I see is your hands start to ball up. Beads of sweat are now dripping down your face. And it's having the opposite of effect. It's not that I wanted you to become angrier, but that's what ends up happening, right? Because we're already off balance. So when someone tells us to relax, even though it's for our own good, it can have a different effect on us. And so when we tell someone who's lonely, you know, don't feel sorry for yourself. Come hang out with us. Do this. It can have a different effect, an unintended effect. So it becomes our responsibility to raise, to elevate that state of mind to a place where it can receive that knowledge in a balanced way. Now, bringing this full circle, we learn so much in our seeking culture space, in so much of our time together as satsanga. And all of these learnings, these principles that help us elevate the way we think, it's hard for us to invoke that knowledge when our mind is off balance. So first, we seek this support through our community, through professional help to bring that mind to a place of balance from which something like sadhana, this practice of reflection, of introspection and self-development can then be invoked, can then be practiced. So first bring that mind to a place of balance. Then begin to invoke this knowledge, be around like-minded people that are independent, seeking to be independently joyous. One that is alone is one that is comfortable in the silence that they keep, with the thoughts of their own mind. It's very much akin to each of us and a best friend we might have. We can sit with them and not say a word for ever. And there is no discomfort. And such a relationship is the one we should develop with ourselves. And so another word for aloneness is independence. And such independence comes from being a reflective person. Reflection enables one to have the right relationship with themselves.
That's such a solid point because there's always this kind of difference between um, aloneness versus loneliness. And it's really helpful to touch on this right now and kind of building that inner companionship. And as we move through college, one question that I always kind of struggled with was just understanding like, what makes a good friend. As you start university, you make new friends, but it's also hard to discriminate and sort of judge like, am I spending my time with the right people? Am I changing if my friendships are changing? So, would love to get your opinion on, how Vedanta defines friendship, and Sumanji's kind of take on university or college friendships.
Yeah, totally. Another awesome question. The first and principal thought I want us to begin revolving around is this idea that you are your first friend. And one should cultivate the right relationship with oneself first. It's only when our relationship with ourself first is one of friendship, is one of love, is one of compassion, that internal narrative is to nurture one's growth, one's happiness, one's love for oneself, that one's other relationships begin to naturally flourish. It begins to shift from this idea of, I need friends to feel whole, to I am whole. And so having friends, being friendly is just that. It neither adds to the value we feel we have nor detracts from it. Our sense of self-worth is independent of that. So first, begin to revolve around this idea. The second, from a Vedantic spiritual lens, is that friendship is a relationship that should nurture balance, growth, and the absence of attachment. I had shared some of these thoughts when we were talking about feeling disconnected, the idea of aloneness and loneliness. And I'll continue to share similar thoughts in this vein. Another way of saying these ideas is that friendship should bring us closer to our own selves and our understanding of ourselves. Our life should be lived in such a way that we are constantly reflecting, constantly learning from each of our experiences. And a true friend is one that facilitates that process for their friend and their first friend themselves. The second point is wonderfully shared by Bhagavan Sri Rama in Ramcharitmanas on how to be a good friend. It's shared in 3 dimensions. I'll share these dimensions as prioritization, development, and sacrifice. With respect to prioritization, a good friend is one that makes a mountain out of a molehill of your problem and a molehill out of the mountain that is their own problem. Meaning, when they're with us and they come to understand that we have a problem, they amplify what is happening in terms of the importance and care that's required for you, and they minimize whatever's happening in their own life and the care and attention that's required for them. They prioritize the other. This is the first true mark of a good friend. And Bhagavan Sri Rama shares this in Ramcharitmanas, but he exemplifies this in his own life. He doesn't just share it and then go act hypocritically, right? It's like if you're in a smoking cessation program and your teacher is sharing, hey, these are all the reasons why you need to stop smoking. It's bad for your health. It's bad for other people's health. It's addicting, so on and so forth. But then, you're on a snack break. You go outside and what do you see the teacher doing? Smoking. And you're like, oh, well, if she's not taking it seriously, then whatever. Right? But Bhagavan Sri Rama isn't like that. He leads by example. So he's saying, here's how you be a good friend. And then his life is the example of this. Now, in Ramcharitmanas, Bhagavan Sri Rama is exiled from his kingdom. And his brother and his wife come with him, Devi Sita. You just begin to, as you ruminate on this, you begin to see his problems are intense. He's got a lot of issues. We should figure out how to help him, right? So all of this is happening, he's exiled, he's come to terms with it, he's living in the woods, he's wearing tree bark, he's eating roots from the ground. I don't know what that means still. Are we digging up plants and literally eating their roots? So he's eating shoots and roots. And then some guy, Ravana, comes and kidnaps his wife. This guy's got so many problems. This guy meaning Bhagavan. He's got so many problems. And now he's trying to find his wife. He's just crying. He's sad. He's like, what else can go wrong? And his brother's saying, don't worry, nothing else can go wrong. And he comes across a personality, Sugriva, who's got his own problems, like each of us, right? 99 problems. We all got problems. And he comes up to him, and Bhagavan Sri Rama's like, I'm looking for my wife. Have you seen her? He's just crying, right? He can't even say the words. Sri Lakshmana is saying them for him. We're looking for my brother's wife. And Sugriva is like, oh, I saw this woman flying through the air. She dropped this stuff. And he shows it to her, and Bhagavan Sri Rama's eyes just open wide. He grabs it, he just breathes it in, because it's still got his mother Sita's scent on it. He breathes it in, and he's just shaking. So sad, but so happy to see something of her that he can relate to. And as this is happening, Sugriva starts unloading his problems, right? Like so many of us. We don't prioritize the needs of others, we prioritize our needs. This guy's got problems. He's crying about his wife. She just got kidnapped. But I too have been kicked out of my kingdom. My brother has taken my wife. I'm constantly running in fear because he is attacking me. I can't find any peace. Now, Bhagavan Sri Rama, with his own problems, set these aside and he says, hey, we both have problems. Let me help you with yours. And so he sets his own problems aside. He says, let's go talk to your brother. Let's go deal with this. And he does. He helps Sugriva get his kingdom back and find his peace, find his happiness. And then when it comes time for Sugriva to help Bhagavan Sri Rama, he forgets. It's Sri Lakshmana that has to march into Kishkinda and basically backhand Sugriva and say, hey, you made a promise to your friend. It's time for you to remember. And this is that wonderful sharing Swami Chinmaya ji shares. Man gets and forgets. So friendship is this willingness to help bear the burden of another, even as one is carrying the weight of one's own. The second dimension is development. If one cares deeply for another, one does not concern themselves just with the physical well-being or the superficial well-being of another. They care for that person's long-term happiness. And so when it comes to development, a friend should challenge us to be the best version of ourselves in every moment. If we're making a decision that's going to lead to our own suffering, they have the love, respect, and concern for us to just call us out on it, even though they know we may lash out, we may get defensive, right? So often this is our experience with our parents. When they say, it's not the best idea to go to that party when you have an exam tomorrow that you haven't been preparing for. It's not the best idea. And when we hear something like that, our reaction is, I know what I'm doing. I'm just going to do this. That reactiveness rather than responsiveness, that responsiveness which is indicative of reflection. So a friend is someone we can trust and whose motive we don't suspect, that they're trying to do something to deceive us that benefits themselves. Their only motive is our own well-being. Such a relationship is of trust and caring. And that's cultivated over a long period of time. In the trajectory of my life, I remember when I was in high school, I was standing outside of the garage with my father. It was senior year. And he was sharing with me, Suman, you have so many friends. And that wasn't a congratulatory thing, okay? He wasn't like, wow, right? He was like, you're so good at friends. He was like, guy, if you are lucky in your life, you will have one good friend as you get older. If you're blessed, you will have two. And lo and behold, after I left high school, after I went through university, after so many years, I feel blessed because I have two. My friends Chris and Steve, whose relationships I developed in grade school. And when my father said that to me, I just laughed. I was like, I have so many friends. Where are they going to go? But now I see and I think on how Vedanta and our scriptures and divinity is supporting us. And I see this fundamental truth that my father had shared with me. I'll share this third dimension in a final thought, as I'm sharing a lot on this one question. But I think the idea of friendship and being social is so ingrained in our culture that it warrants the time we're giving it today. The final dimension that I had mentioned was sacrifice. Very simply, this is the idea of giving of ourselves without expectation of receiving anything. It's that good friends just share because. There's nothing following that because, or rather, they just share cause, and they do it without distrust or doubt. And an example of this that I fondly think of is my own relationship with Steve, who I just mentioned, where we'll just share things with each other about what's happening. Like, we both have enjoyed playing online games. One of them is called Dota 2. And we would play this together all the time. And when we were playing, you need a stable internet connection, and his was consistently dropping. And he would express his frustration in various ways that I can't elaborate on in our time today. Okay. So when he did this, he's given me a key to his house. I just, went in without telling him, and I swapped out all of his network gear. I gave him a new router. I created a new network. I extended the reach of this to across the street because he lives across the beach. He can have some internet there too. And I went so far as to replace the lock on his door, so it was a smart lock, so people could come and go as they please, just like I did. But then there's some oversight. You can see who's unlocking the door, so on and so forth. And he came home after I had done this and I had gone my way, and he called me. He's like, I think someone broke into my house. The locks have changed. I think I'm being kicked out or evicted. My landlord has changed the locks. And I just laughed, and I was like, yeah, your the keypad you might see there. He was like, one, how do you know there's a keypad? So I became suspicious in the right way. And then I said, your new key to enter your house is my birthday. So he punches that in and he walks in. And then he just goes to his living room and he sees some of this gear and what I've done with the network. And he's just grateful, right? That suspicion turned to gratitude. Really, it was just superficial. It was nothing serious. And the converse of this story, the mutual aspect of this, was that he knows I love Japanese food, Japanese culture, and so forth. And so on my birthday, he broke into my home. Our friendship is based on breaking and entering, on burglary. So he broke into my home and he cooked me delicious ramen. He went to the Japanese, Asian market. He cooked me delicious food, got me all of these snacks with lettering and pictures that none of us can read. We don't know what's in the ingredients, even though we're both vegetarian. We just cross our fingers and hope it doesn't have meat product in it. But he did this and he just waited for me to come home and see this delicious food and so on and so forth. And that's the attitude of such a relationship, of a good friendship, that we just do things for each other for each other's happiness, and that doing facilitates our own happiness. And the final thought I'll share here is, the more you begin to grow in independence, in this context of balance, in this context of aloneness that we had talked about earlier, the more we begin to know ourselves. The more we know ourselves, the more we know who we are not, and so who is not supporting who we are. And a way to wrap our minds around this, I'll use clothes as an example. When we are growing up, literally, when we're in puberty, when we're teenagers, we literally physically grow in size. And when we do, we don't cry about the clothes we grow out of. In fact, we're happy when we get new clothes that fit us properly. And so when we're growing in independence, our relationships and what they mean to us, how they're facilitating our continued growth, begins to evolve also. We let go with the understanding that they don't fit and support us the same way they did before. And with such understanding, there's a natural letting go. And so this is the idea in our relationships. When we understand ourselves and what we need to feel supported in this pursuit of independence, we naturally begin to shift what our interests are, what our priorities are. And so those relationships begin to shift and change too. I'll pause there.
Yeah, that was so beautiful to hear about, your relationship with your friend and, breaking into your each of your houses. I think that's just such a solid solid friendship where you're so into giving and giving without, you know, expecting anything in return. As I grow older, I'm also starting to realize the same where it's all about the quality friendships and the unconditional love we get from them. Speaking of unconditional love, I would love to transition to a topic that a lot of students will navigate as they live away from home, to explore a bit more about that relationship with family and how there can be opportunities and challenges navigating that space, and would love to learn about how you can kind of keep that connection, how individuals might feel guilt when they leave their family home and they feel like they're leaving their family responsibilities behind, even when they go to university. How do you navigate that when you live away from home?
Mhm. Another really good question. Um, these are so thoughtful. Family is always a mixed bag, isn't it? And how to navigate family or our most familiar relationships from a distance requires a lot of thought and a lot of intention. When we think on family, especially our parents, they are our greatest well wishers. If you are your first friend, your next best friend is your parents, is your mother and father. And as you were asking this question, I was just thinking how I need to amend some of what I had shared. I had shared my two best friends are Chris and Steve. I would change that to my three best friends, because now I'm feeling even more blessed. I was just reflecting on Father's Day and how I got to spend it with my father this weekend. And it was so much fun. He's my best friend. He's my second best friend. I'm my first best friend. Then Chris, then Steve. And when we say, I am my own best friend, really that means divinity, Bhagavan, because each of us is divine. So our parents are our greatest well wishers. And me saying my father is my best friend, that took a long time. Okay? That took a long time for me to come to that realization. They have spent more time with us than we have ourselves. Before we knew ourselves as a child and our tendencies, our inclinations, they were there supporting, nurturing, and looking after us. And they continue to be there as we grow. So to think that they don't know us, that is an injustice we do to ourselves. To not leverage how much they know us and how much they love us and how much they are concerned about our long-term happiness, that is a disservice to ourselves. To not leverage such a relationship to support our independence, our journey towards happiness. So to think on that carefully, to reflect on these ideas. Now, when we are navigating such relationships at a distance, or let's say we're coming home from university, when we're beginning to explore and discover what it means to be independent, it's important to remember that when we come home after a year, right, our freshman year in college, or after 2 or 3 years, The idea, if we're not regularly communicating, regularly seeing them, the idea of who we are that our parents have is likely who we were when we left. And so it's hard for them to see that growth, that journey, if we're not regularly communicating it with them. So there can be this friction when we go home in this close relationship because they know us as who we were and we know ourselves to be someone else now. And there's that disparity in understanding of each other. And I'm calling this to light because it becomes our responsibility to bridge that gap, to nurture and facilitate that continued relationship. And we should do this because they care for us, they love us, and they are the most well-intentioned for us. The greatest gift we can offer our parents is to not have them worry about us. And to not have them worry about us does not mean we establish independence in a financial way or independence through, having a home and having a partner or getting married or so on and so forth. What it means is that we become a reflective and responsible person. It shows us and them that regardless of the situations life presents us with, that we are capable of thinking things through and responding intentionally with care and forethought in every situation. And what this facilitates is a relationship independent of distance. It allows our parents to not need to worry or be scared about what might be happening with us. Two, one of just inquiring, have you thought about this too in your life? If you haven't, I'm sharing this with you, knowing you will think about it because you have exemplified, you have shown me you are a thoughtful and reflective person. And you are responsible in acting on those reflections. And in a similar way, as they begin to shift like this, we exemplify this too by openly communicating, by reflecting and sharing these thoughts in a way that doesn't require constant prodding and asking on their end. They shouldn't feel like they're interrogating us. That's not open communication. And the evolution of such a relationship with dialogue in this way is one of mutual respect, love, and understanding. A good friendship, isn't it? And I was sharing the realization that my father is my best friend. That is the journey I have gone through with my own father. I remember when I used to go home from university and visit when I was working professionally, I would go home and it's like I would just come home, drop my things off, do my laundry, eat some food, and then go hang out with my friends. I didn't come home to spend time with my family in that way. Now I go home and I'm hoping, please don't call. I'm so glad everyone has moved out of this town. I don't want to go do anything except hang out with my I don't want other people to come over to hang out. Even his friends. I just want him alone with me hanging out on the deck, just, eating peanuts and sitting in silence. That's what we do. And it's perfect. So cultivate aloneness, meaning independence. Cultivate friendship by prioritizing, by developing, by sacrificing, and think on your relationship. We should think on our relationship with family in both of those contexts.
If you enjoyed what you heard or want to learn more, share this episode with a friend or find us online at facebook.com/cmniagara. For those on the journey of self-development, Chinmaya Mission Niagara provides a community forum for seekers to listen, reflect, and contemplate. This podcast is produced by the Young Adults of Chinmaya Mission, an international nonprofit working to transform individuals through the knowledge of Vedanta. Until next time, inspire, love, be.